It's your favorite struggle streamer. So I am at my Airbnb in Arlington, Texas. It's very cold here. Did not expect that. Not sure what I expected. But as long as you guys don't tell me that the internet signal sucks or that something else is weird, we're gonna get through some more of this Grace Jabbari testimony. Um, and yeah, so if you're watching this as it's going live or today, hey, um, the Good Morning America thing was obviously this morning a little bit, and then tonight they released another segment of it. There are some bullet points to it if you haven't seen it. If you're curious about it, to sum it up, what I think was important, Jonathan Majors says he's never hit a woman before. These hands have never hit somebody. He's never hit a woman. He also says he didn't hit Grace Jabbari, obviously. He says that he, you know, doesn't exactly know what happens and that he wished he knew so he could have some peace and closure, but that he did not go to hurt her. And in fact, he never actually got his phone out of his hand. So this whole idea that, oh, he must have broken my finger because I grabbed his phone and he was trying to grab it from me and he's pulling and twisting at my finger, which is the mechanism that they stated. It's one of those things where it's like, if he never actually handed you his phone, there was no situation where you were holding the phone and trying to look at it over here and he was grabbing you, grabbing your arm, got his phone back. He says, according to him, and he's not under oath when he does this interview, right? To be fair. But according to him, he says, here, this is it. And then it's like the Cleopatra text and the D'Angelo song, the album cover photo. And that's it. She never grabbed the phone. So if that's true, if that's truthful, and remember it's only her word technically under oath versus his in this interview, it's not compatible. And the problem is we have Grace Jabbari's own testimony. She'll say certain things that are incompatible within her own testimony. So I've personally seen enough instances just reading through day one where Grace Jabbari has been inconsistent, and we haven't even gotten through this car part yet. So with Jonathan Majors, he's not under oath. He hasn't been cross-examined, so we do have to keep that in mind. But at the same time, there's no reason specifically to doubt his credibility except for playing devil's advocate, or you've just never believed him in the first place, or he's not under oath, so I'm not going to take anything he says to an interview seriously. But that's that. The last thing is he addressed why he didn't testify, and Chillmonger clipped it. So that's that. That's why, he was like, maybe I'll testify, but then he thought the evidence should have been enough. And the driver said everything. She was doing everything. He was doing nothing. The medical experts, those were there. And then when the verdict came down, and he was shocked at the verdict. But he thought that the evidence, the testimony, said all that needed to be said. If he got up there, what else would he say about March 25th? So that's a quick summary of the GMA interview. We've been talking about it over on X a little bit. And then the Dre Max show, the links are in the description. They did a live stream. It was like everyone. It was like Danny, PM, Hines, Chillmonger, Blue popped in for a while. Mika G was in there. And then, of course, Dre. Actually, he popped out of his own stream for a while, but he was there for most of it. There in the description there, you can go watch that live stream. There was a morning part and an evening part if you want to look at that interview. We're going to get to the rest of day one's transcripts about this car incident. Now that we know that Jonathan Majors says, I never even gave up my phone. I had it in my hand the whole time and I never hit her. So Galloway says, okay, or actually, let me share just me struggle streaming. And let me know if I sound like a robot. Oh no, dang, you couldn't hear the... Well, I don't know. I don't know exactly how I have everything set up on this PC. But what I can do is I have retweeted it. And let me see if I can give you guys a clickable link on YouTube. But yeah, in short, he says, what was I gonna say? Like, the driver got up there, said I was doing nothing, she was doing everything. The doctors, their testimony doesn't add up with the injuries she described. And basically, if I get up there, I can't answer any other questions beyond that. I didn't see any injuries on her, but we have how many other witnesses say they didn't see any injuries on her either? So I'm just gonna share this here. And then let's get into it. So Galloway says, okay, and ADA Perez, if you could show the incident, thank you. And how are you getting home? And Grace says, in the same car we had used all night. And with the same driver? Yes. I'm showing you what's been pre-marked as People's Exhibit 9 for identification purposes. If you could show it to the witness, thanks very much. Mr. Jabbari, do you recognize this photograph? Yes. What do you recognize it to be? This is the car we were in. How do you recognize it? It's the same layout. I believe it to be the same car. Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the vehicle that you were in on March 24th, 2023? Yes. Then they move it into the exhibit for the jury. Any objection? No objection. And then, okay. Using the exhibit, would you please identify where you were sitting? Yep, I believe that's the driver's seat and I sat directly behind. You said you were sitting directly behind the driver's seat? Yes. And where do you remember the defendant sitting? Here. So let the record reflect that the witness is pointing to the second row seat furthest away from the camera. So presumably that means the seat behind the driver's passenger seat, the second row passenger side. Do you want the witness to put any markings on it? To the extent that it would be helpful, I can. And Mr. Jabbari, what was the defendant's demeanor on the way back to Chelsea? Now, by the way, when they ask these questions about demeanor, it's, on one hand, it's a good way to kind of convey certain types of words to the jury, but demeanor is one way that you can establish intent. So the element of intent for some of the charges that exist here, demeanor is one of the ways you can establish intent. Like, they were pacing up and down angrily, so you can tell that when they did something as a result of that anger, that intent was obvious. It's helpful when you don't have someone say out loud, hey, I'm going to go fight that person because I'm angry. You can also use demeanor. That's why they always ask that. But Mr. Jabbari, what was the defendant's demeanor on the way back to Chelsea? It was really nice and just quite loving. And I remember they just had at least 5 drinks. And how were you sitting in the car? We sat next to each other and kind of like leaning onto each other. So she's inferring that they're, you know, both, if they're in these captain seats, so this car has captain seats, they're sitting in the same row as each other, they're like leaning into each other across the gap in the floor. Now, this is a big Escalade. That's not just like a little teeny gap. They're probably like sitting like this. Maybe they have good posture. Maybe they're fine with that. We were holding hands and my head was resting on his shoulder. What was the defendant doing? He was just kind of We were just kind of chatting and he was just like scrolling on his phone. What happened next? I saw they had sent like a song to someone, and the song was like what I would recognize as a romantic song. And then I said, "Who are you sending that to?" Kind of jokingly. And then, kind of in the next breath, a message popped up saying, "Oh, I wish I was kissing you right now," or something like that. Okay, when you were leaning on the defendant's shoulder, were any lights on in the vehicle? No. Was there any music playing? I can't recall. You said you saw him send some romantic song. Do you know what song it was? It was a D'Angelo song. It was apparently Lady, I think the prosecutor said. I don't remember the one. I just remember the album cover. What did the defendant say in response to you asking him? Well, to the song, he was just like, didn't really say anything. And then when the next message popped up is when he started saying, "No, it's not what it looks like. It's not what it looks like." And I was like, I don't know how else that looks like what. I was so taken back. And what was the tone of your voice when you were asking? Loud. I was so shocked. And now this is like one of the few times that she's going to say she's loud, because she already knows that that driver is going to come testify to what she was acting like. So she can't really refrain or walk back her demeanor here. I was so shocked, like, within all of our whole relationship being the way it's been, very vague, I never considered infidelity to be one of the things that was also happening. So it was just like what? So I was upset, said, "What is that?" Like, and he was like, "Nothing, nothing. It's not what it seems. It's not what it seems." Really panicky. And I was like, and then Zuckerman objects, non-responsive. That's interesting. Move on to the next question. What was the defendant saying in response? He said, "It's not what it seems. It's not what it seems. Babe, babe, baby, baby. It's not what it seems. No, 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 no." That kind of thing. And no, Milton, I'm at an Airbnb, so I'm like making a makeshift desk to do this. It's a bed and a chair. So, but it is what it is. It works. What was the defendant's physical demeanor at that point? He was just really like, yeah, alert. Like, he'd been grand. Is that like a British word? Should I like Urban Dictionary that? Is there like a British dictionary? In British English, grand is used to mean something dignified and noble. It can also mean excellent. Important and large. Oh, so she's just saying he was just very large at that point, maybe? Who knows? But anyway, he's sitting there like he'd been grand. Had you ever seen the defendant like that previously? No. So describe him physically. Has he ever been like that before? No. But remember all in the other instances that we looked at, she would try to say that she could just see it on his face. He would get in that place, sort of. That type of language to describe. He looked physically scary, even though he didn't do something physical. It was all to paint this picture. And now she's flat out saying, "Have you ever seen him look like this before?" No. And I think that's actually honest, because she never really expected this moment to finally come. He never actually left her before, but now she just found out there's a replacement. So, never thought there was an infidelity issue before. Never saw him have this grand physical demeanor before. And now she sees it for the first time. At that point, did you observe the driver looking behind? No. Chaudhry objects. The court says yes. Did you see the driver? Were you looking at the driver? I wasn't looking at the driver. All right, the judge cleared that up. Next question. What happened next? I was saying, "Let me see the messages. Let me see the messages." So if she doesn't have his phone, she's still saying, "Let me see." And he wasn't, so I just grabbed his phone and turned away from him. Now, if you just joined, we just talked about that interview. Jonathan Majors says, and again, to be fair, he wasn't under oath. This is during this GMA interview. He says that he had the phone in his hand the whole time, and he held it to her and was basically like, here, there it is. Basically, yeah, it is. It is what you think it is. I'm done, like I'm out, kind of. Um, but now, right in the beginning of her testimony on this incident, he wasn't letting me see the messages, and so I just grabbed his phone and turned away from him. Okay, and had you ever seen a text message like that? Your Honor, can the record reflect the action the witness just did, please? The court, do you want to describe the witness? Miss Galloway, let the record reflect the witness moved towards her left and put her arms together. In what position was her head in? Galloway says down, facing down. Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, wait, so what? Moves towards her left and put her arms together? Oh, so she's just like this. Because he's sitting on that side. And then, have you ever seen a message like that on the defendant's phone previously? No, I never looked at his phone, ever. You stated before that you didn't consider infidelity to be an issue that you had. Yeah. No. Have you had any arguments about infidelity before? No. There were a few times where I had said, like, when I had said, like, seen a photo with him or felt a kind of way, you know, I'd say, oh, I don't know, that doesn't make me feel very nice. And he would say, like, no, that's just in your head. That's your, like, past issues. You could trust me. I love you. And so I just accepted it. Do you remember what hand the defendant had the phone in? No, she doesn't recall. Interesting, because I think she's going to decide she remembers what hand he had it in. No, I don't recall. You said you took it. Do you remember how you took it? Yeah, I just really easily grabbed it. Like he wasn't expecting me to take it because he wasn't holding onto it tight. What did you do once you had the phone? I turned away from him because I wanted to look at the message. So I turned like this. I'm just like trying to see the message and I could just see like his kind of home screen. But then, yeah. Let the record reflect the witness turned to her left with her hands clasped together. So indicated. What happened next? And that's kind of weird, like, with her hands clasped together. Maybe that's a poor description, but nobody corrected it here. But if you're grabbing a phone, I'm going to use my mouse because I don't want to pull my phone up. Like, you don't really clasp. I don't know, that's a weird motion. So indicated. What happened next? Like, I felt like a heavy thud on top of me. I felt what I knew to be the weight of him on top of me, and he was really trying to pry the phone out of my fingers. Because that's the mechanism of injury. That's what the prosecution needs to prove. But I was just like going into like protective mode. I just kind of held over, and I felt like him kind of yank my arm. Objection, Your Honor. The record needs to reflect each of these actions. Let her finish, and then we could do it. Go ahead. Do I carry on? Go ahead. Miss Galloway says, when you were looking at the phone, you said you felt a weight. How did you know it was the defendant's weight? Well, he was the only other person in the car, besides the driver. And you had indicated that you were leaning towards your left side, which, showing you has been pre-marked as People's Exhibit 9. And then I think this is a picture of the car, or the inside of the car. Can you please show the members of the jury which part of your body was positioned towards? And Jabbari cuts in, says, my like whole body was facing away from his seat, so like away towards the car door. So my body was between, okay, so So she's saying she's facing this way, away from the seat and towards the door. So my body was against the door, not towards it anymore, but against the door, turned away from him in that seat behind the driver's seat. Let the record reflect the witness had indicated towards the seat closest and moved a position away from the photograph. I don't know if that's very clear. Just do it again. Do it slowly and maybe have the witness mark something. So she's going to get a chance to figure this out. Miss Jabbari, would you mind putting your finger where, or if you have a marker, that would be great. Would you mind putting an X where you were sitting with your initials? Where I was sitting? Yes, thank you. Just let the defense see that. Let the record reflect Mr. Jabbari is indicating that the seat that is closest in the photograph. What was that marking that was put on there? I can't see it. It was a circle with her initials. I just did my initials. All right. That's to indicate where she was sitting? Yes, Your Honor. Now that we've indicated where you were sitting, Mr. Jabbari, if you could state if you were facing towards the right or to the left. Towards the left. Okay. Let the record reflect the witness has made an indication towards her left. And you stated you were holding the defendant's phone. Do you remember which hand was holding the phone? Yeah, like kind of both hands, like a bit like this, just kind of grabbing it. I don't know what motions she's actually doing. Let the record reflect witness has moved to her left and put her hands clasping together again. What part of her body are the hands clasped together? Towards her chest. Okay. So you're not even looking at the message, you're just trying to grab that phone so you can hold on to it till when to go look at it. Like, you're planning to, like, not let that go. Which is kind of to be expected when you hear someone takes their partner's phone, I guess, right? After you said you felt the weight, what happened next? He was trying to pry the phone out of my hands, and then, when that wasn't successful, he put my hands, my arm, and my hand behind my back. And then Galloway says, let me stop you. Let the record reflect that the witness put her right arm behind her back. When you said he was trying to pry the phone out of your hands, can you explain for the members of the jury what you mean by pry? Just like really trying to let me let go of the object I was holding. So yeah, like peeling it away as much as he could. What hand was he peeling away? It felt like both, but ultimately my right hand. Oh, that's so certain. I wonder why you knew it was your right hand. Because I kind of let go. Wait. So she has her one arm behind her back. This is why I gotta act it out, because I don't realize it's inconsistent until I realize where my body is. He's prying at both of her hands, but her one hand's back here right now. So how is he prying at both hands? Anyway, let's get through this, because this girl, I felt like both, but ultimately my right hand, because I kind of let go, and then he had it behind my back. This is like a game of Twister, like she's like using all her arms and all different, she's doing one of her visual dance routines to hold this phone. When he had your right hand behind your back, which hand was holding the phone, if any? So he's prying at your right hand. Just previously you said that it felt like both, but ultimately my right hand. Then he had it behind my back. But when he had your right hand behind your back, which hand was holding the phone? The left hand. When your arm was behind your back, what happened next? I wasn't looking at him. I was just kind of going into that zone. Well, why do you have a zone if you're the one that's always the victim? What do you mean? Like, you tried to say earlier he was the one that had the zone and would go into this different demeanor, this different look. I gotta stop waving my hand because it's like re-zooming my camera. But I just felt like he was kind of twisting my arm and my hand and just trying to make me feel pain. She's establishing intent. Remember, she has lawyer family members. That's the only way I could describe it. Yeah, it just felt excruciating and that kind of thing. So let the record reflect the witness has put her right arm behind her back and twisted it. When he first peeled your fingers off the phone, did you experience any pain? Zuckerman stops Galloway. Objection, leading, Your Honor. It is leading. Try not to lead, Miss Galloway. When is the first time you felt pain? I was saying the first time I felt pain was when he came on to me, and then the rest, just nothing felt comfortable. Okay, and when you said he was twisting your arm, did you see the defendant doing that? No, I wasn't looking at him. Where were you looking? I was just kind of trying to protect myself, like this. So let the record reflect the witness has moved towards her left seat with her left arm facing towards her forehead, towards her head. Maybe like this? I don't know, it's just face. I don't know. But is her arm still back here? Like, this is a little bit, trying to make sense of it. It's not working for me. Uh, I've got to stop confusing my own camera. It's like, sit still. When the defendant was twisting your arm, did you feel, what if anything, did you feel in your arm? It felt painful. It felt uncomfortable. I felt pressure on my hand, like he was just trying to hurt me. Did you feel, it's withdrawn. Where did you feel the pressure on your hand? In my fingers. What happened next? Next I felt like a really hard blow across my head. Yeah. Let the record reflect the witness has made a swiping motion over her right portion of her head. So presumably in this direction, which would be coming from Major's left hand, unless she's trying to say this is how the ear injury, like assuming like her ear was pulled forward by him punching from behind her. Which would mean there should be blood at that point in time. Interesting. That's why she has to establish she was looking the other way, because she needs to put this ear injury. She needs to make sense of that ear injury. Maybe it really happened that way. Okay, so let the record reflect that the witness has moved towards her left with her left arm facing towards her head, so indicated. When the defendant was twisting your arm, did you feel, what if anything did you feel in your arm? I felt painful. It felt uncomfortable. I felt pressure on my hand, like he was just trying to hurt me. Did you feel, withdrawn? Where did you feel the pressure on your hands? In my fingers. What happened next? So she's still, to me, it just seems like this is all happening in the moment. It is, she's trying to suggest that's what's happening, that she got punched in the back of the ear. And when you say blow, where were you looking when this, and then the judge interrupts the question, which is annoying. Was it an open or closed hand? Oh, to describe it, okay. With an open hand, thank you, Your Honor. So he's just, oh, maybe I guess they're saying to grab the phone. That's actually kind of helpful. It doesn't prove the intent. If you have an open hand, it could be you're just trying to grab your phone. You might have swiped her ear in the process. And then, Your Honor, I didn't see that, so Chaudhry wants to see it again. Do you want to do that one more time? And then Jabbari says like this, like, I felt it here. It was just like a fast motion, fast like impact, and it took me aback. Let the record reflect the witness indicated towards the right side of her head. Okay, I don't know, because at this point, if I was the prosecutor, unless Jabbari's not describing it right or showing it, they're not saying the word ear here, and I don't see why they wouldn't specify ear or why she wouldn't make the motion at her ear. They are going to do some cleanup on this at the start of tomorrow, the day 2 testimony, so let's see if the prosecution's trying to pry some things out that she doesn't get to elicit from Jabbari on this part of the testimony. She comes back in the next morning after they've ended this topic of what happened in the car, and she's like, Your Honor, I need to ask some more questions about that. And he's like, is it going to be quick? And then she asks a whole bunch of questions. But anyway, so maybe we'll see eventually if she ends up saying that it was her ear, or if she's just saying another strike in the head that was never examined by the medics that responded. But where were you looking? She says she was looking away. When you say looking away, what do you mean by that? Not looking at him. Did you see what motion, if any, the defendant made? No, I wasn't looking at him. So how do you know it was an open hand? When you said that you felt a blow to the right side of the head, what would you describe the blow as? Just felt like a hard impact to the back of my head. What, if anything, did you feel at this point? A lot of pain, so I kind of sat back, which is when he got the phone out of my hand. Okay, so now remember, Jonathan Majors is saying in this GMA interview that He always had the phone in his hand, and she was trying to get it out of his hands, but she never got it. All of her testimony depends on her getting the phone out of his hand, and this idea that he was prying the finger back. This is why I think the theory is she hurt her finger by impacting something, which is how the doctor suggested it would be consistent with the way the injury manifested itself. But she had to work backwards and say, oh, I wasn't hitting something. How can I figure this out? Well, there was a phone. It's logical to think someone would pry my finger back trying to get something out of my hand. I'll say that's how my hand was injured. So she doesn't remember what happened when she's texting her friend Holly. She doesn't mention it at all to the stranger friend. She doesn't mention it to Jonathan in any of the text messages she sends him. But she comes along on testimony here and gives us all this great detail about how, yeah, I know how my finger was hurt. It was because he was prying my right hand. It just makes no sense. And so I just want to say, hey, hey, Milton. I saw you ask if I was back home. I am not. She was holding onto that phone, though. And that's the thing, like, guys, like, it's never that serious. I know if something's your property, that's cool, but fights can escalate. And, on one hand, it can end up with an irreconcilable police call where there's a mutual fight. And even though you might have the right to do something, you have to go and prove that you have the right to do something. Alternatively, there's also the other person could escalate and things could go horribly and irreversibly wrong. So just always be careful. I know there's a drive to protect what's yours, but sometimes, man, it's better to just let it go. And then, so hey, Denise, and hey, Ernest. But yeah, we're still on day one, just reading through her description of what happened in the car with the phone, especially knowing that Jonathan Major says he had that phone his whole time. So she says, let's see, that she kind of sat back. So now she must no longer be leaning to the left. She must be sitting back. He gets the phone out of her hand, according to her. And what would you say your pain level was at that point? I had a lot of pain, but again, my emotional state I was just kind of only thinking about the infidelity. It was just like, I was in pain, but I was thinking, who is this girl? And you said you sat back? Yes. What happened after you sat back? I sat back and then was like, just getting upset. I said, show it to me. If it's nothing, just show it to me. Yeah, you grab the phone, you fight over it. You don't even get to see anything this whole time. And then she asks, are you cheating on me? I was just like really upset and confused. And he had his kind of arms out, like just pressing on my face and my body. So then I like kind of hit at his arm. And then Galloway says, I'll stop you there. Sorry, it's okay. And Galloway says, let the record reflect that the witness has used an open hand to touch various parts of her chest and made a swiping motion away with her hand. And also swiping with both hands the face. That's the judge asking. And then Jabbari says, yeah, he kind of pressed everywhere that he could reach, it felt like. Where were any of like indications of this happening? It's just like playing patty cake with you. When you had sat back, where was the phone? He had it. I don't know where. Girl, he either had it in his hand or you knew it was in his coat pocket. Because where were you reaching at when he was running off the sidewalk? Why did you sit back? He's very strong. What? So why didn't you sit back at the beginning of all of this? He's very strong. Can you explain what you mean by that? I couldn't move. Why couldn't you move? The pressure of his body and his arms against mine. So, hold on. She's pretending that she's pressed back in the seat because he's sitting on her, putting pressure on her. He was just like patty caking her a second ago, but now it's all his weight pressing on her and she's just sitting back. That doesn't make sense. And then, are they having a conversation? Because she says she's saying to him. She's not saying, I'm yelling in a panic because I'm crushed back here. She's saying, I'm saying to him, just show me, are you cheating on me? So all of this is happening. He's laying on her, putting pressure on her or something. And she's just casually asking him these questions, trying to figure out who this girl is. It doesn't make sense. It like really doesn't make sense. It would just make more sense if she was like, look, I don't remember the specific actions that happened here. It was crazy. There was a lot going on. I just knew I wanted that phone. I had it in my hand, and my finger hurt like hell after it happened. Like, he was trying to grab the phone from my fingers. I don't know where I was looking at every single given moment. And even if it was 8 months earlier than I'm giving you this testimony, I don't know if I would know a second by second detail of every which way I was looking. Like, I just don't think that's humanly possible to credibly remember the things she's trying to say that she remembers. And then on top of it, it's contradicting itself. It doesn't make sense physically. Oh, is it Denise's birthday? Hold on, where I see a birthday wish. Oh my god, happy birthday, Denise! That's awesome. You finished looking at the nighttime complete interview. It was interesting, but did not include as much information as I was hoping. I wanted the days step by step. I think there's more. I think there's I think Hulu's getting a longer version of it, maybe. Don't take my word for it. I kept trying to keep up with it, but it would say there's one promotional clip, another promotional clip, another one was coming. But I do think there's supposed to be like an hour's worth of it. So, hey, Andre. And then let's see. And yeah, no lip gloss. None of her actions as she described prior to this night indicate that she would dare, her favorite word, snatch his phone. But now she's, yeah. Well, she never would snatch his phone before because she never suspected infidelity. He was the one, like, she would just see a picture and get insecure sometimes. And then, as Danny says, would show up disheveled for her one public appearance and be beaming about it. But yeah, that's the other thing that they pieced together. It was like Lily Rush and then Danny and Pam. Um, he told a reporter, a men's health reporter, that he was fully single when he did an interview that was going to be in the November issue, which comes out sometime. You know, they release it before the month sometimes. It'll be like mid-October it comes out. Well, he'd done this interview with the men's health interviewer and then called her back and was like, no, I am fully single, because she'd asked him some questions about it. And she went and updated on Twitter that, hey, he just called and said this. And that would have been timed right after September 2022. So, yeah, you know, seems like they broke up, and I bet I can guess which direction the breakup happened in, who chose to break up with the other person, and who came back, and who might have cried to get the other person to come back. But that's my own speculation. So let's see. And then she's sitting back because he's very strong. She couldn't move because of the pressure on his body and the pressure of his body and arms against mine. So she's sitting like this and he's just like leaning onto her like this. Like they're both just laying like mummies in this Escalade captain seat. Earlier when you said you felt the blow to the ear, why did you sit back as you said? Now, that's a bad question. I would have objected there. First of all, it's confusing. But secondly, it's putting two timelines together. She felt the blow to the ear. She didn't sit back. She didn't testify that she sat back because of the blow to the ear. She said she sat back at some point in time after he got the phone. So Galloway's, I don't like that question. So she says, earlier, when you had felt the blow to the ear, why did you sit back as you said? The kind of shock of that heavy impact in the head, when you get hit in the head, it feels very loud when you're hit in the head. And it's just shocking, the pain I felt. I just needed a minute. When you say loud, so you're panicking, you want to know who's in this phone, but then you just sit back calmly because you need a minute. I mean, you probably did need a minute, but I don't believe you took it. When you say loud, can you explain what you mean by that? It just felt, it's hard to put into words. It just felt like loud. Like I just felt it. I heard it. I felt it. And I couldn't stay like that anymore. It hurt too much. What? And you stated next that the defendant had, in your words, started grabbing. Yeah, and pushing. I guess he was trying to keep me out of his way. Yeah, and yeah. She said nothing there. Let the record reflect the witness put two open hands on her chest. Oh, that sounds like someone pushing someone away. I guess he was trying to keep me out of his way. Yeah. And what? So she gets pushed in the chest by him. What does that sound like he's trying to do? So indicated. When you say pushing, can you explain what you mean by that? Using his hands and his arms, like with force, to push me. Where in your body did the defendant push? I would have said ass and answered. Kind of kind of everywhere. My arms, my face, my neck, my chest, my head. This is like an operation game. You said your arms, face, neck, and head? Yeah. Well, you forgot chest. You didn't correct Galloway there, but you left one out, and we're just gonna say yeah, I guess, and move on because you probably don't remember what you just said. And what did you do in response? I tried to hit his arms away. Oh, that's why he has a scratch on his arm, isn't it? That's why you gotta come up with a reason. You had to hit him because you know that scratch is there. Like, I was hitting like that. Let the record reflect that the witness has used her left arm to make a hitting motion with an open hand. Excuse me, I don't think I saw... Chaudhry, excuse me, I don't think the record is accurate for what I just saw. The judge asks, what did you see? I saw that the witness had one hand up and was moving her wrist so that her hand was doing a flicking. Why don't you do it again and let everybody see exactly what the action was? Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a full range of motion because it was more as a response to the motion, so it was quite small, like movements like this to get him off of me. Is she oh my god. I'm picturing like a little ballerina dance. Like she's like just daintily being like in the middle of all this pressure and all this fight. She's just like minimizing every time she's asked to repeat it. She's like, I was doing this, and it was more like this, and then it was like this. Like, what is she even doing? But she says, because it was more as a response to the motion, so it was quite small, like movements like this, to get him off me. Let the record reflect the witness used her left open hand to swipe forward repeatedly. Was it a swipe downward 3 times? And Galloway corrects herself. Yes, thank you. Yeah, because that sounded weird. So it was flicking. Where did you touch the defendant's body? His, like, arms and his shoulder. Why did you do so? Just to get him off me, really. That sounds sure. While you were doing that, where was the defendant? Just sat on the chair. What? So all of this, she's saying she's planted in her captain's seat behind the driver because she can't move and he's pinning her there. And she has to like do these little flicks to get him off. But the whole time he's sat on the chair. And going back, which hand did you use to grab the defendant's phone initially? I felt like it was with both hands, yeah. Like, kind of went in like this and turned. So, let the record reflect that when it's turned to her right side, use both hands to clasp an object, moving towards her left. So indicated. Your Honor, was the question back to the one previously asked? Why didn't you object? It's been asked and answered. But I thought the question she actually asked was which hand did Mr. Majors use to take the phone, and she answered a different question. It's overruled. Go ahead. Thank you. You already answered the question. So while you were moving your hands toward the defendant's arms, what parts of your body was the defendant touching? Yeah, just anywhere he could get his hands on. So anything, this whole thing keeps repeating itself. The prosecution's trying to get her to say something. You already answered that. They know it too, and they're going to bring this back up tomorrow because they apparently don't get the clarity that they want. Just anywhere he could get his hands on. So anything kind of that was visible to him on this side. My head, I guess. So she's saying anything on this side of the seat. because she's not turned with her back anymore. Is she sitting forgetting she said she turned like this? Because remember, they just asked what hand you grab the phone with. So they're repeating the order of events with this description. And now she's saying he was grabbing at any part of her side that was visible to him. And he's sitting in his chair. So now she's no longer, after grabbing the phone in the first story, her first telling, she's no longer turned this way where it would be her back that was visible. It's her right side of her body that's visible. Like, this is, it sounds nitpicky, but it just shows you that at the very best, she doesn't remember what she's trying to say she remembers here. But can the record reflect how the witness just touched herself? Let the record reflect the witness put her hands on her head, her chest, and her shoulder. How long did this approximately last? It's a funny question because the concept of time in that moment doesn't feel like I understand it, but it felt long, but I think it was probably just quite quick. Were you able to see the driver at any point during this incident? I just was not looking at the driver. I was just really focused on trying to get him to talk to me about who that girl was, and yeah, stopping him hurting me. Yeah, make sure you sprinkle that detail in. You said you were using your hands to move his arms away from you. She gives a nonverbal answer. I'm assuming it was yes. Did you at any point scratch the defendant? No. And they talked about that in the GMA interview, that it was inadmissible. He wasn't allowed to bring in those folders because she didn't lay the foundation for it here. And then they couldn't ask Detective Mejia to do it because that kept getting sustained. So, did you at any point slap the defendant? Zuckerman objects, leading, court overrules it. Did you at any point slap the defendant? On the arm, yes. Did you slap him anywhere else? No. What, if anything, were you saying at this time? And Jonathan Majors, in his interview, points out that this is when the thing on his beard, the cut on his face, happens. What, if anything, were you saying at this time? Saying, like, have you been cheating on me? Like, what is going on? Why are you not saying it? Like, tell me. If it's nothing, then just show me. Talk to me. He was like, giving me nothing in terms of answers. When you say he was not, what if anything was the defendant saying? I don't recall him saying anything that moment. What happened next? He ordered the driver to stop the car. What happened after he ordered the driver to stop the car? He got out of the car. What, if anything, happened when you got out of the car? He turned around and, just pushed me back into the car, basically. Did you know where you were when you got out of the car? No. Where did the driver stop the car? What location? Jabbari asks, what location? Galloway says, let me rephrase the question. Where in the street did the driver stop the car? Kind of nearish the sidewalk. But I think it was on the sidewalk. What? Was there a sidewalk in the middle of that surveillance footage? What the hell is this? Is she trying, unless there was one of those divider medians on that road, which I can't visually remember from that first car surveillance video. What is she saying here? She thinks it was parked on the sidewalk. Does she think the driver pulled up on the curb when all of this was happening? She had no idea she was in the middle of the street. Oh, I think what they're trying to get at, Denise, is, that the car was parked in the middle of traffic. And she's like, I think it was near the sidewalk. I think it was on the sidewalk. No, it wasn't. And that's important because you guys are getting in and out of the car and have to run to the sidewalk. And she doesn't remember that detail. But she remembers exactly which way her body and both arms were twisted at any given second. It doesn't make sense. She had at least 5 that she admitted to at this point of these drinks. And then no middle margin. Okay, and a car was on other. Yeah, and they're lucky because it could have been more traffic, but I guess the timing of night and the specific street, experienced drivers take lower traffic roads. That could have been a lot busier, that road. Um, but yeah, so she doesn't remember that at all, or she's trying to downplay it if she does remember it. But at that point, when you had exited the vehicle, what, if any, pain were you feeling? I felt it's hard because I was just so in shock. Like, I knew, I knew how it felt, and I knew the pain was there and existing, but I was so in shock, and there was, I guess, a lot of adrenaline moving through my body that I didn't give it a second thought. But you just said in the car that you, like the pain, you just felt like you had to sit back and sit still. So then they play Exhibit 5. Let the record reflect the video is going to start at 1:59. If you could pause here. And then they pause the video at 3:48. So they watch something that's almost 2 minutes long. Ms. Jabbari, how much time had passed between what happened inside the car and what happened outside the car? Not very much. How much time had passed between when the defendant said for the driver to stop the car and you being pushed into the vehicle? He said stop the car. He got out. I followed. Yeah, not much. As soon as it stopped, it felt like he got out. And when the defendant got out of the car, why did you get out of the car? Because I just wasn't focusing on anything other than the infidelity. I was in such shock over that, and that's kind of, strangely, the only thing I was thinking about. No, it's not strange. It actually entirely makes sense. You were determined, and you chased that man down. And you assaulted him because you wanted to see the phone for yourself. Which sounds really controlling. I mean, you already know he's texting someone else. So what do you need to know more for? I was in such shock over that. And that's kind of strangely the only thing I was thinking about. Can you break down when you got out of the car, the first thing that happened that you remember? Yeah, I just remember him turned around and trying to make me stay in the car, basically. Sorry. So she crying now? How did the defendant try and make you stay in the car? Can you explain that? Just trying to push me in there and, like, stay kind of just... My body always felt really light in his hands, so it just felt like, yeah, just like that. He was just forcing me to stay in there. Yeah, how many times did he have to try to force you, and what does that mean if you aren't just sitting there? Where were your arms when the defendant was shoving you back inside the car? He was holding me with them. Holding you. Was he shoving you? Or is he holding you? Where were your arms at? I don't know, just like by my body. Oh. You're just they want you to look like a rag doll because it also establishes, doesn't just make this image of you being flown in and out of the car, it makes this image of you not doing anything like hitting someone back. What, if anything, were you doing while the defendant was shoving you back inside the vehicle? Zuckerman keeps objecting to Galloway. Oh, get it together, Kelly. But yeah, that's true, because that could be prejudicial. So he corrects Galloway there for saying the word shoving. The court, it's been pushing, shoving, let her say what really happened. That, what? I don't like that, because that's the judge kind of giving validation. You're saying, let her tell what really happened. When someone says what really happened, that means as a fact. And you're rolling out the carpet to say that the next thing out of Jabbari's mouth is what really happened. The judge shouldn't be wording things like that. He should be saying, let her say what she thinks happened, or let her say what she remembers. Interesting. What were you doing at this point? I was letting him do that. I never would fight back. That's not, according to his police report that he filed against you. I guess if you never really had to fight back if you started the fights. I can't recall. Oh, at this point, what, if anything, was the defendant saying? I can't recall any words he was saying. Do you remember if you said anything? At that point, no. And at this point that we had just watched on video, what, if any, pain were you feeling? Yeah, again, I was aware of pain, but my head was just in the shock of everything else. It just wasn't registering. It was just really, truly only like thinking for my heart and that kind of pain, that infidelity. Okay. And when you said that you knew there was pain, was there any specific? They're really trying to get her to say that she was already in pain at this point, and she's just like, uh. So when you said you knew there was pain, was there any specific part of your body that you were feeling pain, if at all? Yeah, I knew that my head hurt. I felt like I had a headache, but nothing I couldn't handle. And what do you mean by nothing you couldn't handle? I guess being used to that kind of pain. Why is that? Chaudry objects. Sustained, that's sustained. And then the witness says sorry. At this point, what happened next? He was running away. Again, I couldn't really work out why or tell you why, logically, why I followed, but I just did. I wanted to hear this. This is my boyfriend. Literally that morning, we were talking about when we were going to get married, the names of our children, and he's just running away instead of just saying like, yeah, actually I've had an affair, or no, this is nothing. Let me prove it. There was nothing. It was just silence, which has always been her problem, and bolting out the door in that moment. Bolting out the door. And I was just running after him because my heart wanted to know. She always just, even that. She can't just say she wanted to know. She's like blaming her heart as a one singular organ, not her whole body making a conscious decision. And I was just running after him because my heart wanted to know. So I ran after him and I lost him. I couldn't find him anymore. Okay, and at one point in the video, it shows the defendant holding your hand. Do you remember that? Mr. Zuckerman. Objection to the characterization, Judge. The court overrules it. Yeah, I remember he was trying to get me to not follow him. What do you mean by that? Yeah, just kind of forcefully saying to get me off of him in any means possible. And did the defendant succeed in that? Yeah, to the extent he managed to run away. And how did he succeed in that? And then the court says, I think she just answered that. I'll rephrase the question. Very weird that the judge, like, won't grant the defense any objections, but then he, like, makes the objections on his own. Okay, I'll rephrase the question. Why was the defendant able to run away? Just a lot stronger than me. This is one of my favorite two lines because she never uses the noun or pronoun when she's talking about this stuff. Why was the defendant able to run away? Just a lot stronger than me. And then Perez is playing the video. He's starting it where they left off at 3:48. If you could pause here, they pause at 5:35. Approximately how long were you running, Miss Jabbari? I don't know. It just felt like ages, but probably a couple minutes. What was going through your head as you were running? Just like, why am I running after him wanting to know the answers? Like, yeah, just really was like, who is that girl? All this kind of stuff. What was your emotional state at this point? It was really heartbroken, sad. What, if any, pain were you feeling at this point in the video? Yeah, my head hurt, but I didn't think about it. It was not registering. It didn't register into my nervous system. So they play the video 5:35. They pause at 6:31. Mr. Jabbari, what happened next? I was aware that I had like lost him, and I kind of just had a bit of a moment where I had just been running. I ran the streets in Manhattan, and I saw these people, and they looked young and friendly, and I basically just said, I'm sorry. I know this might seem insane, but I just left my bag and my phone in a car. I just found out my boyfriend's cheating on me. I said his name. I said I'm not crazy. I promise he exists. Can you please help me get an Uber home? And I'll like wire you the money. And yeah, I just said I'm really sorry. I just like want to get home, that kind of thing. If you listen to audio, she's actually trying to convince them not to call the Uber because she doesn't have any money, which is kind of normal. I'm not trying to say that's not a normal thing, but it's like she listened to that recording. Because remember, when on cross-examination, she's going to get snippy with Priya. Priya's going to be like, did you see the videos of blah, blah, blah? She's like, yeah, the ones that you released. So she's had all the time in the world to watch these replays. She's point by point running this one back. But she doesn't really, I don't think she asked about getting an Uber. Maybe she does. Maybe I didn't hear that one part. I just heard her saying, like, oh no, I don't have any money. And she was instead asking, she needed the help to get her phone or bag back. Maybe I've got to revisit that. Who knows? But yeah, she said, I'm just really sorry. I just want to get home, that kind of thing. What was your emotional state at this point of speaking to the individuals? Yeah, just so in shock over it all. Still really overwhelmed. Yeah, just felt heartbroken. What, if any, physical pain were you experiencing at this point? Yeah, again, I was aware that there was pain in my body, but it just wasn't registering anything like fully. Like, I'm a dancer. I've danced on point shoes my whole life and danced with a broken rib. If I've got to focus on something, I just needed to get home at that point. I didn't feel it. I just felt adrenaline and shock. Why couldn't you go home at this point? Because I left my phone and my bag in the car. Yeah. Maybe if you weren't so busy chasing someone, you wouldn't have left all of your stuff behind. In a car that, if someone else hires a car and you leave your stuff in it and that person just ran away from you, where do you even begin to try to figure out how to find that car? You don't know the car company. You don't know how it was hired or booked. I mean, you could be shit out of luck. You left something behind. It's not like your friend's car that you're definitely going to see again and you can trust them to hold your stuff. You might not ever find this driver again. That's insane. That's insane. What do you mean, chillmonger? Back to that pain question. Because there's kind of a lot of how they keep asking it? Yeah, they have to come back. They have to come back to it on day 2 because they're going to get through this whole event and they're not going to get the answer on the pain that they want. And if you just tuned in, Zuckerman has had to object, I think 4 times now, to Galloway's questioning because Kelly can't keep it together. And then, yeah, she just told strangers like who her boyfriend was. We need to soundboard that. No way. Shout out to Max with the cap. But yeah, she's going on. So I think I probably had full range of motion because remember earlier she's like, I didn't have full range of motion. I was just, it was her left hand. I was just flicking him away because I didn't have full range of motion, even though I demonstrated with the hand that wasn't the one with the broken finger. Now she has full range of motion. It just wasn't, I wasn't recognizing anything. And approximately how long did you speak to these individuals? A couple of minutes, I believe, at least. Yeah. Did you come to learn any of their names? Yeah. Chloe was the female. They had just been so friendly. They could tell I was upset. See, she's always trying to say that like some random other person who is not the one speaking, she speaks for them to validate what she wants to convey to the jury as being truthful. So she's saying here, they could tell I was upset. Chaudhry objects. It's sustained appropriately. Thank you, Gaffey. Last answer is stricken. It wasn't stricken, though. And then ADA Perez plays video, pauses it again at 6:43. And then Mr. Jabbari, just for clarity, could you please identify yourself by an article of clothing in the vehicle? Yeah, the green and white top. ADA Perez, if you could press play. So then they run it for like 20 seconds. 6:43 to 7:01. That's not even 20 seconds. That's 18. If you could see the woman you identified as Chloe on the screen, could you identify her by an article of clothing? Yeah, she's got blonde hair and holding a phone. Is that clear? Okay, you could press play. So then they're at 7:01. They go to 8:06, so a minute and 5 seconds. And then what did you tell these individuals about what occurred in the car? That's you can't ask that, Galloway. Objection. Oh, they're called. So come up for a second. The defense withdraws their objection. All right, objections withdrawn. Go ahead. Mr. Jabbari, what did you tell these individuals about what occurred in the car? I just said about the cheating. And why is that? I would never have told anyone about anything physical. So this is why I don't get why those text messages, everyone's saying Priya messed up and let them come in. she's been able to say this. Like, if it's testified to on direct, the defendant has the right to impugn that credibility because it was testified to already. But who knows? I think that was all a farce. I think they were going to let those text messages or something from that Molyneux evidence packet in by any means necessary. And then she says, "Why is that?" "It's just something I'm not comfortable doing." "Can you explain that to the members of the jury?" Zuckerman, "Objection, Your Honor," asked and answered. See, Zuckerman has to keep cutting in because he's trying to make sure there's not a serious issue for appeal. And Galloway has stepped in. Is this 5 or 6 now? He's had to step in. This one's a bigger deal. Some of the other ones were a little minor. But Zuckerman has to keep coming in and objecting to his own side's questions. The court says, "I'll give a little leeway." "You could answer that." "Well, he's known publicly as an actor, and I just didn't feel safe to do that." "Yeah, but you were happy to scream who it was. You could tell people I was injured and then not tell them who injured you." But, maybe they didn't see your gashed, bleeding ear at this point. So you're just like, "Oh, I'll keep this huge gash, bleeding ear that I clearly already have at this point secret from them." Anyway, "Miss Jabbari, in this video, you could see your body. What, if any, injuries could you see at this point?" I just really wasn't focused on that. I was focusing on, okay, I just need to go home. These people have been so kind. It's been 3 minutes. It's been like 6 minutes, maybe. These people have been so kind. Why? Because they tried to fight Jonathan while he tried to walk past, and then you chased him? Is that kind? And then Chloe hits her boyfriend. I was really aware that I felt objection, non-responsive. The judge is like, "That's true, it is non-responsive." Ask the next question. Move to strike. I'm not going to strike it. But the question was, what, if any, injuries can you see on yourself in this video? Yes. Can you see anything on this video for injuries? Jabbari's like, "No, it's too far away." Go ahead. What, if anything, were these individuals telling you at this point? That all sustained because it's sustained. Without getting into the substance of the conversation, what happened next? They were starting to get an Uber for me, and then I just kind of saw him marching back down the street. Marching towards us. I don't think he was trying to come towards you. I think he was trying to go to the car and coincidentally had to get past you. But if you want to describe it as marching towards you, fine. And what happened once you saw the defendant? He just kind of walked by. He's not marching anymore? And I tried to make him aware that I didn't have my phone or bag. When she's like, he also was aware we were in public, and I know what mood he was in. So I just also was aware that people would see if anything happened, if he gets angry again. So you think you have a free pass to chase him again? Is that... It doesn't make sense. So that was going through my mind as well. So what was your emotional state when you saw the defendant? I was scared. And then they play the video, and then they pause it. And so that was like over 2 minutes that goes by here, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Mr. Jabbari, was this the point that you had described that you saw the defendant walk by? Yes. What was the defendant's demeanor at this point? Like tough, hard. He looked like, "Get the fuck away from me, bitch." That was his demeanor at this point. Like tough, hard, just like she described him as grand earlier for the first time she's ever seen him have a grand demeanor. Was the defendant saying anything to you? I can't really recall. Do you remember if you said anything to the defendant? I know that at some point I was telling him to just get my phone and my bag. So just telling him to go get it. I think we could continue playing the video. So they play at 10:40. They stop 1 minute and 7 seconds later at 11:47. Miss Jabbari, do you see yourself in the video? Yes. Can you identify yourself in the video? Shall I point it? Is there any article of clothing that you're wearing? I've got a coat on, but the green shirt and my hair is blonde. Oh, so she put her coat back on. I didn't pay attention to that. Did you see the defendant in the video? Yes. Where is the defendant standing in relation to you in the video? I believe it's him in front of me. Interesting. I would have called that. I would have been like, objection, Your Honor. Like, it's kind of speculation. Do you want, with the court's permission, the witness to get up and point on the screen to identify the parties? Yes. If you need to stand up so you can see, Chaudhry says I'm fine. Well, she is really short. I want to make sure the defense can see, and if you want to indicate on this, where is this stop? What's this exact time? 11:47. And at that time, could you point out where you are on this piece of the video? So Jabbari points at something. I wonder what finger she used to point. Can you see that? And what do you want to indicate for the record? So Galloway says yes. Let the record reflect Ms. Jabbari is pointed in the video in the upper left-hand corner at herself, and she's wearing a black coat and blonde hair. So indicated. Ms. Jabbari, what happened after the defendant walked away in front of the apartment? So he walked back towards where I was and walked by, and then I kind of followed him. There's that language. He was then, I assume he knew I was speaking to people. I bet you knew that would make him mad. I'll stop you there. Sorry. Oh, yeah, the prosecution, even they didn't want you to say that. It's okay. Why did you follow him? Firstly, probably the reason of just still, he was my boyfriend, and feeling like I had no explanations, and that also he practically needed to get my keys, phone, handbag. And so you leave your stuff in the car, and then you say, and then also he practically needed to get my keys, phone, and handbag, and you just said a few lines ago you told him to go get it for you. Like, she's a weirdo. Like, I would never, if you just assaulted me, I'd be like, I'll get my own shit or I'll get new shit. That's it. What happened after you followed the defendant? The car was found. He was on the phone to his manager. Oh, so she does confirm it. Interesting. Guys, that is page 140. He was on the phone with Priya Satyani, who was a manager of Priya Satyani. And did you hear what, if anything, the defendant was saying to his manager? She was asking what was going on. The court sustains it, even though no one objects to it. The court sustains it. Okay, what happened next? He was being quite loud, yeah. And I just said, like, no, let's do this in the car. I just didn't want anyone to watch or anything, you know. So all this time, he's the one that wants privacy. When he's gone, you run and talk to these friends. Now, all of a sudden, he's on the phone talking about what you just did to him. You're like, oh my God, I don't want anyone to see or hear what's going on. Let's get in the car, even though you just abused me in a car. I just didn't want anyone to watch or see anything, you know? So I said, let's just get in the car, and we'll think about this in the car. When you say he was being loud, could you explain what you mean by that? He was saying, you probably told your new friends everything, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that sort of jest. Who was he saying that to? Still really just sad. Yeah, I felt devastated and just really, yeah, everything I knew to be true was not, you know? Well, because you create your own reality. I just moved over to the other side of the world, and then it's just like, what was your heart rate like at this point? It's got to be quite high. What happened after you suggested going into the car? We went into the car. What happened next? We were sitting in the car, and it was actually kind of calmer than it had been. I just said, look, like, this is crazy. If you're saying you've done nothing, show me. She doesn't even, like, press him about the injuries. All I need to see is that message. And then he just kind of stormed, like, as if he wanted to get out of the car. I'm gonna stop you there. Where were you sitting in the car? I was sitting in the same seat I was sat in before, so behind the driver. And where was the defendant sitting? In the back row. So she's in the second row behind the driver. Majors is in the back row. And what was the demeanor of the defendant while he was in the car at that point? He was quite quiet, but just, yeah, that was it. How long do you remember approximately being in the car? I couldn't tell you an exact number. What happened next? he kind of like stood up to try and leave, like pushed me down into the seat. And then he opened the door and was like being quite loud again. So I just kind of grabbed at his shirt and tried to keep him in the car. And yeah, the button ripped off his shirt. Like the button ripped off by itself. She always does that. She always removes the noun, the person, the thing doing the thing when she's doing a bad thing. The button just ripped off his shirt on its own. It grabbed its own like life being and just said, you know what? I'm going to rip off of his shirt right now. I'm just going to do it. Why not? These people all want to see Jonathan Majors torso hanging out on the street. I'm going to be a good button and just pop off by myself. Like that's how she describes the things that she does, the things that she makes happen. Something else did it. So the button ripped off his shirt. And he was like, look what you've done, and was shouting that really loudly in the street. Oh no. So someone's going to hear something about you. What happened after that? He kind of ran away again, I think. And then I believe I found Chloe again. And this is the second part of the car where you can see Chloe comes closer. Shams and Max are a little bit behind. Majors is running. He kind of does walk with Jabbari a little safely to get her out of the main traffic. But then they split. Major starts to like run away and Jabbari makes a beeline towards Chloe. That's the second car video. I just posted it yesterday if you want to go look on X. I'm not going to play it on the stream here. What happened after you found Chloe? They kind of stayed with me. I was visibly upset and a bit shaken up. Yeah, they were just kind of comforting me. When you say visibly upset, what do you mean by that? I was crying. If we could play the video again, so they do the 11:47 to 12:50, and that includes them going back over to the sidewalk. Mr. Jabbari, do you remember what we watched on this video? Yeah. What is that? That's when we got out of the car, and I tried to get him back into the car, just by pulling his shirt. When you pulled his shirt, what occurred? I think maybe a button came off. What happened after you said the individuals had joined you again? I think we got back in the car, or at least we definitely walked to the car. We were around the car, and the conversation was that he was going to go stay at a hotel, and that I was he was like, you could have the car, I'm going to a hotel. So I said, so you see the difference there in the beginning of this, it's like, we're all walking to the car, we're all around the car, and we're all having a conversation. But then at the end, it's clear, he was like, you have the car, I'm gone. Like, he made his decision and just said, you can have the ride. So I said, like, okay, eventually, because she wasn't agreeable, was with them, and they were making me feel calm. And then Chloe was like, do you want to, like, go for a drink and just, like, settle? You're going through something. So I was like, yes, I would love that. Yeah, let's go for drink number 6 or 7 or maybe 8. So we tried getting into the bar that's, like, there, but it was closing. So then they were like, look. Wait, so they have a friend's birthday. They're going to say they're already late to it. But you tried... I don't think Chloe mentioned this. So we tried getting into the bar that's like there, but it was closing. So then they were like, look, we've got a friend's birthday. Maybe it's nice to just distract yourself and come for a drink and have a dance. So is she saying that her and the 3 friends all tried to get to some nearby bar? And then they're like, oh, it's closing. But we also have this birthday party that we were already leaving to go to that we forgot about until this bar was closed. Did she just add a random detail for no reason? The worst thing in my head would have been going back to the empty apartment we shared. I'll stop you, thank you. So they play the video again from 12:50 to 13:36. What did the video just depict to your memory, Miss Jabbari? Us walking back to the car with Chloe and the 2 guys, and then all just kind of talking. They were agreeing, like, because he was being quite loud, like, not to do it in the street. We were just kind of talking around the car. Was there any physical altercation in the car at that time? At that time, no. They were all peering in, so they're just sitting there like... One of the guys also was kind of in the car watching and just checking. Did there come a time when the defendant did leave? Yes. And whose idea was it to go to the birthday party? Chaudhry objects. The court repeats the question. It's overruled. They kind of collectively, they were already going, and because of that bar was shut, she was like, just come with us. And they were just being so kind and lovely. I was like, yeah, okay, that would be nice. What was your emotional state like at this point? It was really sad. I was like crying in the taxi. Yeah. And I think Chloe, and I didn't get Chloe's transcripts, but I thought Chloe, I'll have to revisit the recap from that day. But I thought Chloe was like, oh, she was so cheery in the cab. But they bring the pain question back up. So what, if any, physical pain were you feeling at that point? At that point, kind of started to feel the pain a little bit. I could see physically like that the knuckles on my middle finger started to redden. Now that's important because the friends don't ever testify to seeing this. But she's saying it's already red at the point of the taxi cab before they even get to Lucy's. So, according to her own testimony, it should have already been red at this point. So I was like, something's not right there. But again, just adrenaline and shock was probably running through at such a high rate. I didn't feel it, you know? So Chaudhry says, Your Honor, could the record reflect what the witness just did with her hands? The judge says, I didn't see anything. There were some gestures. The witness said, I touched my knuckle here and here. This is where I saw the redness appearing. Just describe which knuckle. So Galloway says, let the record reflect that the witness pointed to the right middle finger. So middle, yeah. So these two. Middle knuckle and the top. Well, wait. If someone says top knuckle, does that mean the one part of their hand? Or would it be the top of the finger? I'm assuming that it means these two. Had you seen any bruising prior to that? I hadn't even looked at that point. That's bad. So if you say you haven't even looked at that point, you can't say that something was injured before the second car button popping incident. She's a bad witness for the prosecution. What, if any, pain were you feeling in your head at that point? Again, the same. Just a very global sense of knowing I was in pain, but just not allowing it to register. Just knowing it's there and not caring about it. And was she just like ignoring? Like it's like her own elephant in the room. She's just ignoring it. Why didn't you want to go back to the apartment? I just didn't want to be alone at that point. Your Honor, if we could approach. Sure. They have a discussion. It's not transcribed. Did there come a time where you did go to the birthday party? Yes. Do you know where the party was? No. How did you get there? In a taxi that they left. What, if anything, did you remember about the taxi ride? I was really upset in the taxi, and they were just trying to make me laugh, and then they were being really sweet. They were joking a bit about people who would ask, who is this stranger, this English stranger you brought with you? And they were saying that Chloe has loads of friends from all over the world, and that it won't be weird. Don't worry. Kind of chatting. They were trying to make me laugh, stop me being upset. And that's her again, using these people she's ascribing something to them that will help her solidify her story that she's upset and these people can clearly see that I'm upset. So that proves I'm telling the truth when I say I'm upset, because I'm telling you that they saw it, but they're not corroborating this. She did this when she was talking about the headphone incident and said that two people came over because they could tell something was wrong. It's just a way to corroborate something was wrong. Jonathan Majors just upset me, and I'm telling you the truth because these two other people noticed it. Those two other people didn't testify to it. They didn't show up. They might not even exist. But she keeps doing that. Do you remember approximately what time you arrived at the bar? Probably around 1 or 2 a.m.-ish. What happened next? We went in the car and they had like an area, I guess, and it felt like more a club than a bar, but yeah, it was busy, but we went through the bar, and then their friends had like a little area, so kind of just stood there for a little bit. Yeah, said hi to people, and then we went to get drinks. What was your emotional state after arriving at the club? Yeah, I was just trying to suppress the sadness. Still felt sad, like so deeply in my heart, but mostly just really grateful for these people that I felt like they just saved me. When you say that you felt sad, what were you sad about? The infidelity. And after you arrived and got to this section, what happened next? There was like some drinks on the table where it was like, it was like vodka or something like that. So we went to the bar because we saw, I'll just get us all a drink, like a thank you. So I bought a bottle of champagne for the group that was there. And how did you buy the bottle of champagne? With the card that I had been using. Whose card is that? It was my card that he gave to me. And why did you do so? It's the card I use all the time. And who picked out the bottle of champagne? I don't recall. What happened after you ordered? We drank it. How much approximately do you remember drinking? I think we definitely had a glass each and maybe a little refill if that. What, if any, pain were you experiencing at this point? At that point, I knew, okay, I'm going to wake up sore tomorrow, I know, yeah. I remember telling the people I was with, like, look at my finger, it doesn't feel like it's okay. So she says she's showing them. And yet they still come around and testify, we didn't see anything. But she's walking around going, no, but look, look. So it's not a situation where we just never looked in that direction. We never looked at it up close. She, according to her testimony, and this doesn't mean that she actually was walking around and doing it. She's saying she did it. She was like, hey, look. And they're like, on their own testimony, they're like, we didn't notice anything wrong. But yeah, it doesn't feel like it's okay. Yeah, at one point, like, I was holding ice to my finger. I was in pain, but you know, still able to use it. It just hurt. And now, if you haven't heard me speculate, Chloe interviewed with the prosecution in April and then again before she testified. And as part of her testimony, she said something where she was like, she was describing something. I don't remember what it was, but I did a video on it and it's in that video, just Chloe's testimony. And she clarifies, like, I might have used another word. I might have used that word. And I noticed that and I was like, it sounds like she wants to be careful in reference to something that she may have said in a statement somewhere and she's not sure. Well, she also testified that she was already intoxicated when they left this apartment building to come downstairs when they were standing on the sidewalk. And then this ice thing, if Jabbari had already put this idea in the prosecution's head, and the prosecution, when they're doing their interviews in April, is like, do you remember anything about ice that night? Were there ice buckets around you? Maybe Chloe did or didn't remember something, but maybe that question made her go, I mean, I do remember ice. Or maybe that question in April, she didn't have an answer, but when she's being asked on the stand in December 2023 during trial, and she's being asked, do you remember anything about ice? And she's like, I do remember something about ice. She could just be recalling, and without realizing it, that her recalls actually, she remembers ice being associated with this event during her meeting with the prosecution in April. But now she's answering, yeah, I do remember something vaguely about ice. That's why witness testimony, you got to be careful. But yeah, at some point, Jabbari is the one that leads us this idea that she was holding ice to her finger. It's something that the prosecution was already aware of. It was in pain, but you know, still able to use it. It just hurt. What, if anything, did you do while you were at the club? Dance and chat, and hit my head, and maybe ran into a wall. Just trying to distract, oh, and spun by my broken finger. Just trying to distract myself and go like, okay, I'm okay. You know, like feeling suddenly I had this kind of feeling like I'll be okay without him. That kind of like independence, like slightly coming back. I hadn't felt in a really long time, you know? Well, you guys, he just broke up with you in October, maybe September. The journalist mentioned it in October. But you technically were free then. But a really long time, you know? I'm a dancer. I like being in that environment. It's a nice place for me to be in. And these people were so loving. I was like, okay, I'm going to be okay. So I just Yeah, I was just having the nicest time I could have within the situation. When you said that you were chatting, who were you speaking with, if anyone? I think it was mainly with Chloe, and like, obviously, a few of her friends would then come and chat. I would talk back, of course. After you had the glass of champagne, what, if anything else, did you have to drink? I believe we had some shots of tequila, and then, I can't specify, I guess. So there's more than just the tequila? Did dancing and speaking help your mood? Yes. And probably the alcohol. I'm showing you it has been pre-marked as People's Exhibit 10 for identification purposes. They introduce it. What do you recognize it? Me, Chloe. I think his name is Sham. It's really Shams. But I'm sorry if I got that wrong. And did you take this photo? No. Is it a fair and accurate depiction of you, Chloe, and Shams at the club on March 25th? Yeah. And she said, oh, do I keep talking? No, just yes. So she was about to say something that Chloe said. The people would move, and she knew she wasn't supposed to say it. The people would move to admit people's 10. They admit it. They compare it to the version given to the defense. Just so the record is clear, that photo was extracted from a video in this establishment. No, Your Honor, it was taken by a different witness. Okay, no objection, Your Honor. So, Exhibit 10 is entered into evidence. They publish it to the jury. They say, Miss Jabbari, do you remember who took the photograph? One of Chloe's friends. What was your pain level like when you took this photograph? Again, it was just mainly my finger because it was the thing I could see. I could see, even on this finger, my knuckles are darker. Chaudhry objects. The court's like, it's in evidence. Chaudhry says, just the question was, what was your pain level like? And the answer is not responsive to that. It's overruled. Just, yeah, as I said previously, still kind of in shock. Still, like, knew that there was going to be more pain, but the only thing I was aware of was the finger because it's your finger, so you could see it. So now it's obvious when your finger hurts. But it wasn't obvious. It wasn't apparent for any other time period until right now. Now it's suddenly, duh, yeah, it's your finger. You know if there's pain. It was changing color. That was something happening before my eyes. How are you feeling when you took the photo? I just think I felt really grateful for these people. I felt safe. Felt really like loved and held in, like a horrible moment. I don't know many people here. I obviously had my sister lives here. I have friends, some friends that live here. Well, the friends that you first went to Walters with that also knew about the bar behind the back that would be open late. You have Ben Toddy, your sister, but like you have an unnamed friend. You didn't give a name to the friend you went to Walters with. That you decide, you know, in my isolated lifestyle, I'm going to suggest restaurants to my boyfriend for us both to go. So yeah. But interesting there. She does try to. I have friends, some friends that live here, but I didn't want to tell anyone the details of the relationship or the violence that occurred last night. And I think it was probably quite clear. So it was just nice to be with these people who were, for no reason, were being so kind. I felt really, really grateful for them. Thank you. If you don't mind, thank you very much. So I take the exhibit down. I'm showing you what has been pre-marked as People's Identification 11. No objection. It's entered. I don't think there's any objection. And they published it to the jury. And then, Miss Jabbari, when was this photograph taken? I think in consequence, I don't know if it's probably a second after or before the other one. Why would you take a happy photograph after the defendant's assault? Chaudhry objects. The court says rephrase that. Galloway says, why are you smiling in this photograph? But now, obviously, Jabbari knows why she's asking. Court says, Chaudhry objects. The court says she can answer. Because I did feel like joy in that moment. Also, I didn't just want to pose and look grumpy, I guess. But also, I did feel really grateful for them, and they were just being so nice. That's why you never contacted them ever again. If you could show the members of the jury, as well as the defense, Exhibit 11. What, if any, injuries do you see in this photograph? I could see the knuckles on the middle finger of my right hand are darker than the rest of my fingers. The court. Could you see that? Could you hold that up again? Just show the defense. Miss Galloway, let the record reflect Miss Jabbari is pointing to her right middle finger in the photograph. Record will indicate, while you were at Lucy's, how did your physical condition change, if at all? So it's a condition for her, but it's a demeanor for Majors. Yeah, I think it was still this sentiment of just trying to have fun and trying to have a nice time. But eventually it was like, okay, I just need to go back home now. I don't want to stay out all night. And it felt like I was in a stronger place to, like, go home and just be there. And yeah, so I can't remember now. Yeah, so she just went, oh, where did it jump to? Oh, yeah. So she just wants to go home and just be there. There's no, I need to pack and move and get up out of there. And that's important. I've talked about it in other videos. I also broke it down on X. But she's going to end up testifying that there's no note just letting you know what happened. She's going to testify that it wasn't a suicide, a show of suicide. It was just her saying to Jonathan, I'm moving and leaving for good because you assaulted me. That's what she testifies, that little snippet that she texted him in the morning of March 25th, the last thing she texted him before she went to the hospital, that's what she characterizes that as. But here, and she tells Holly she's going to move, but here, she says, I'm in a stronger place to just, like, go home and be there. Not pack. She doesn't have things to do. She's not leaving at this point. She's not leaving at this point. And yeah, so I can't remember now. What, if any, effect did alcohol have on the pain you experienced earlier? I mean, that's kind of a medical opinion. I would have checked. Well, maybe not. I imagine it helped to not feel a bit in that moment. Did there come a time when you left? Yes. Approximately how much later was that? I think I was there a couple of hours. How did you feel when you left the bar? I felt tired. I felt a kind of pain creeping up in my body a bit from what happened in the car and against the car. Against the car? That was in the prosecution's opening argument, but I think it's been agreed across the board that there was no slamming against the car. And I think by closing arguments, the prosecution was shoving her into the car like a rag doll. No more talk of her being pushed against the car. So that's a slip. And she hadn't testified. Did I miss it in this reading today? Did she testify that in the part where they were getting out of the car and he was putting her back into it, holding her by the arms, and her arms were just by her body? Was there any testimony about her body being put against the car? Weird. And I just, yeah, headachy, and just thought, yeah, I'm done. Had my dance, time to go home. Were you able to go home? Yep. How did you go home? I just got a yellow taxi. I tried to book an Uber, but my phone had to do this whole thing of connecting one phone from its internet. It just wasn't working. So, yeah, because you have a jabroni phone. So I just went outside and got a yellow cab. Why wouldn't your phone connect to the internet? Because I was using one phone as a hotspot, and just sometimes it just doesn't really work. And I could see there was a bunch of cars, and Chloe said, maybe there's cars outside. So instead of just dealing with that, I thought, I'll get in the taxi. If we could play People's Exhibits 5 already in evidence, that's 1336. So this is going to be like the elevator stuff. This is part of that big compilation video. So if you could pause, they pause at 1340. Then they start playing it at 1944. And then they pause at 1954. So what they're actually showing is 10 seconds. Mr. Jabbari, what do you recognize this video was taken? Me getting back to the apartment. And when was this? Sequentially. In the night. After I'd gotten a taxi from Lucy's. Okay, and can we start the video at 1624? So they're going backwards. And then they're pausing at 1722. Do you recognize the location of this video? Yes. It's the bar. Can you identify yourself in the video? Yeah. With the court's permission, Then she points. And she's pointing to herself in the lower right-hand side. Miss Jabbari, do you remember what is occurring now on video? I'm signing a receipt. Were you able to sign the receipt? Yes. What hand did you use to sign the receipt? My right hand. How are you able to sign the receipt with your right hand? Just with my hand, yeah, I guess. The pain was in my left. Girl. The pain was in my left, in the middle finger. But I mean, you could still do stuff. What were you signing a receipt for? Drinks. Then they keep playing. They're playing at 17:22. If we could pause the video here, pause the video at 8:42, so minute 20 seconds. Mr. Jabbari, do you recognize yourself in the video? And then she says, let the record reflect that witnesses pointed to the woman on the right-hand side. Do you recognize the individual that you're with? Yes. Who is that? Chloe. What, to your memory, do you remember doing at this point? This is me trying to do the internet thing to get an Uber. Thank you. Resuming at 18:42. Can we pause the video here? So they pause at 19:32. That's just shy of a minute. Mr. Jabbari, did you have any communications with the defendant while you were at the club? I didn't have any with him, no. Did you check your phone for any messages? No, I didn't. Not until leaving in the taxi. What happened when you were in the taxi on the way home? I saw that he had messaged. Did you remember what the defendant had said? He just said to let me know, let him know I had gotten home, and he loved me, and that he didn't cheat on me, but it's like, not working, something like that, along those lines. Yeah, like you didn't read those messages over and over to know exactly what they say. What did you do after receiving those messages? When I got home, I just got a glass of water, went up to bed, and called him. I text him back. Actually, before that, I would have to have my memory refreshed exactly of what I said. Okay, we'll move on and get back to it. Did there come a point, because I don't think they ever introduced those text messages, so did there come a point when you returned home? Yes. And what was the point where we watched in the video? And that was the point where we watched in the video. Yes. How are you feeling when you left Lucy's and returned home? I felt like I was more able to... I felt more in control of my emotions. Girl. I think I just got all of the adrenaline out. Yeah. I felt calmer. Hold on, there's really bad wind outside. Texas is really windy. Is it like this all the time? It sounds crazy. I think I just got all of the adrenaline out. Yeah, so I felt calmer. What level of intoxication did you feel at that point? I mean, it was probably yeah, quite tipsy. But not, I could get myself home on my own. I felt safe. I wouldn't do that as a woman if I didn't. No, it's just one of the reasons why I left. I didn't need any more to drink. I'm good. Just want to go home. Okay, and then they stopped for today. So that's that for that part of the testimony. Let me pull up my chat window. And give me 1 second, because it just sounds really crazy outside. I just want to make sure nothing flew into our car. Okay, so it's actually supposed to snow while I'm here, which is really weird. I haven't had snow since I still lived in New York, but I don't know. I didn't know Texas weather was so kind of crazy. But yeah, so this is pretty much it for at least what they're going to talk about with the car, the chase scene, kind of the Chloe stuff. But on day two, they are going to come back. The prosecution's going to come back and be like, no, we need to ask you some more questions about the pain. So when we start reading that, we'll see that there. All of my exes live in Texas. You know, maybe. I don't keep track of all of them. I'm not like Jonathan Majors with only a few. What do you say? A few? A couple exes? No, I'm kidding. Um, but yeah, I don't know. There's a lot in her testimony that's really annoying. And I left the chat unattended the whole time because I wanted to get through the reading. So I don't know, people asking how many drinks prior to the car. It was at least 5 that she admitted to. I didn't know if 5 included the one that she like snuck and went and chugged. Let's see. Yeah, lip gloss. That thing that the judge said. Yeah, that was weird. Go ahead. She's gonna tell you what really happened. Like, that's not an okay thing for a judge to say. Jill, they really wanted her to say when she felt that pain. And it's crazy because she doesn't say it starts to get red until she's in that taxi cab, which, if that's even truthful, that means based on her testimony, the first point in time where there should be any redness would be after she was attacking him for the second time and ripping that button when the button popped itself off. Let me be clear. When the button magically flew off and did what it wanted to do without Jabbari having any role in it whatsoever. So let's see. Waiting for him to go to the bathroom and downing the drink is crazy. I mean, I've requested the exhibits. It might be a defense exhibit. I don't think it would be. I think it's something that the prosecution didn't turn over in the FOIL request that went to the newish video evidence that we got like 3 weeks ago. I don't think that they turned that over, but I think the prosecution has it. Why would they have the entering and the walkout of the restaurant but not have that video? So, but I did request it. They gave me the 30-day statute of limitations limit to respond to me because I'm not some big fancy media corporation. But that, maybe it'll come. Who knows? I would love to see it for my own entertainment. I don't even need it to prove the facts of the matter. I just want to watch her run and do it. But yeah, it's easy for the 5 of the jury to believe he looked tough. He looked grand. The demeanor, the intent was clear in his face. No lip gloss. Yeah, I need to get that plugin that lets me pop up comments. Don't have it. I will get that though. I'm gonna switch. I use Streamlabs, and I don't. It's fine for gaming, where you really only need like one little box, and then the game. But I don't really like it for doing this stuff, so I will switch to OBS, and then I'll be able to pull up your comments as I talk about them. She says yeah a whole lot. I say yeah a whole lot, and I feel like she says it way more. She says yeah, like, kind of. The only time she's less wordy is when she needs to describe someone doing something, and then she doesn't say I or me. Let's see. I just see Ernest just puts a cap emoji. Yeah, she does. She knows where all the bars are. She's like, I just got in a new city. I don't know anyone here, but I know where all the bars are because me and my friends have already gone there. But Chillmonger, yes, the chill was in my the chill was in my left. The pain was in my left. Wish I was in that courtroom. It's snowing like crazy here in Missouri. There was so we would have been driving. Okay, my geography's kind of bad. When we were south of that driving, probably like 4 hours ago now, 5 hours ago, the rain was so bad. So if that was frozen, I can imagine. It was like you can barely see in front of you while you're driving. No, it's not always, Texas is not always like this. I was just saying the same thing about the wind. Well, it's like cool. I haven't seen like leaves that fall off trees in a while either, because I'm in Florida and I don't know. it's like palm trees, and then if a leaf falls, it's because an entire tree is falling from a storm. It's not just like one leaf drying out and flying away. Um, so I haven't really even heard like leaves rustling. So maybe I'm just not used to it. Maybe it sounds more extra just because I haven't heard it. But yeah, that whole left hand, right hand thing is really suspect. That button must have loved Creed 3. That's what I'm saying. It's probably like he had a shirt on underneath. And actually, I had when I was looking back at that reporter who said on October 2022 of 2022. So October 22nd, 2022. She's like, "Hey, Jonathan just called me back up and said he's single as fuck." Like it was Men's Health. I went and looked at that article quick, and there's also a snippet in there where he's talking about he doesn't really like to be out in public just bearing all of that. He says it's still a kind of a private thing, that it's kind of an intimate thing to keep some things hidden behind closed doors. And just because of the timing of that and knowing that he just broke up with somebody, all I can picture is Jabbari and how she just seems to constantly like to wear these, what would you guys call the Joe Jonas thing? That like low, it hasn't even got anything there, but she's always wearing some type of very open, like sport coat, or even when she's going to like this elevator thing with the buttons. And I'm gonna do a video breaking down this button lie. This girl lied about the buttons. Because in the video, she testifies that she buttoned her buttons up. But in the video, she unbuttons them and they stay unbuttoned and they go to dinner together. Her testimony doesn't make sense at all. But yeah, she's like always like opening like her chest. And he has this interview in October, I guess it came out in November of 2022, right after he says that he was single, he broke up with her, where he's saying like, you shouldn't show your body all the time. It just seemed like he was thinking of her while he was giving that part of the interview. She has heart and she follows it. Yeah, nothing's ever her own agency. She stumbles her words a lot, but when we get to day 2, and I'm not going to say she's not going to trip over her words, but just from a glance, like if we're looking at this right here, and there's a lot of instruction here because they're doing the video. Let me go on like a random, oh my god, especially when she was going on and on about the dogs. We have like whole paragraphs. Like all of these single lines are really the judge, they're lining up a video. But if we go back to the September stuff, we got all these long paragraphs. You're not going to see that on direct at all. Like, she's just going to be like, no, yeah, maybe that's what happened. I don't recall. And that's not unusual for a witness to have different demeanor on direct versus cross-examination. But it's extra funny to see happen with Jabbari because she adds so many words in all these other little stories that seems like she's making up and trying to make sense on the fly. A lot of influences that lack chest seem to push the very low cleavage. Yeah, it's like, I think part of it too is when you're in like a beatnik type culture, more culture forward, there's also that kind of draw about androgyny. So it just fits the group better, the clique, the niche. But let's see. She has no boobs. She wears her button all the way down. That's right. And then he was biased. I think I'm missing who was biased. Let me see if you had a comment earlier, Kanika. No, they didn't. I think I'm not going to be able to tie that back to the actual question. Yeah, I think I'm losing that one where that came from. But yeah, so that finishes up day 1 of her testimony in the transcripts. Danny was on point. Like nothing and I want to have her on. So I don't know if that's going to be like the very next time I stream because I'm not planning these. These are just kind of when I have a free moment and I'm jumping on. So I can't really get someone else to commit to a time slot. But I would love to have her come on for some of these, anything really. But especially the day Jimmy was in court, I would love to read that day of testimony with Danny because I think it'd be really cool. It'd be like role reversal, right? It would be her seeing the transcript that she wasn't there for. Um, and then just doing some other videos breaking down the individual incidents. And I don't think Jonathan Majors needs it. I think anyone that really matters that's close to him, if they don't understand he's innocent by now, then they're not the right people for him. But I'm happy to keep doing these transcripts and keep having these little conversations because I ran into like 8 people. It wasn't a lot, but 8 people today that are like, why is he talking about Coretta? And even though the Coretta recording was viral, they still have an opinion on this case, but didn't even hear about the original virality of the Coretta Scott King thing. And today, they're walking around with egg on their face like, why would he compare Megan to Coretta Scott King? And then stating their opinion factually as if they knew everything under the sun about this case and it's undisputable. But they don't even know the Coretta Scott King recording, something that went viral. So I'm going to keep doing these things for those like little 8 people on the internet that pop up once in a while because it's stupid. They shouldn't be able to say that and just be so wrong and loud about it. But so next video will be the start of day 2. It will kind of relate to this because Galloway is going to come back and try to ask more questions about the pain. But other than that, it's going to move into what she starts doing at the apartment, where we get all of her inconsistencies about there's no notes, just letting you know what happened, and the packing lie. Because she lied about packing. And she'll say, this is a sneak peek, she will say when she was with Ben Toddy, she was pointing to her dance clothes for him to help her pack because she was going on that 2-week work trip. She was packing for that 2-week work trip. So she lied to Holly, she lied on the stand. It's also a complete lie, not that we're shocked, that there's no note just letting you know what happened was not her text telling him, I'm moving. But the girl's a lie, and we're going to keep looking at it until we get through her testimony transcripts. Oh yeah, the judge was biased. Yeah, I mean, could be blessing in disguise. The one line I stopped and paused longer about, can't remember exactly what it was. Oh yeah, you're gonna hear her say what really happened next. That's not good that he said that, because that's the judge implying that what the witness is about to say next is true and correct. That's not good. But they'd have to raise that on appeal for an appellate court to even consider it. So who knows if that'll be part of their argument. But you guys are welcome. I think I'm hoarse because I've been in a car and I haven't been sleeping. It'll be fine. I'll get over it. But you guys all take care. I'll pop up in a live whenever I have another free